Hey, it's Live Today Live. I'm Randy Robinson. I have another live guest with me right now on Skype, and this will be very interesting. Of course, all my interviews are interesting, right? I say that every day. So this one, legit. I've got Victor Marx. He's the founder of All Things Possible Ministries, and he's got just one of those stories that is very, very interesting. And right now, he's doing a lot to help a lot of people in different areas that have been impacted by trauma. And it comes out of his own life story. And Victor's also famous on the internet for taking a gun out of someone's hand in record time. We'll just let your mind go wherever you want with that. So this is going to be interesting. If you want to share it, please do share it. If you haven't subscribed or followed the live broadcast, do it right now. Live Today TV on all the social media outlets. So jump on in there. Victor Marx, how are you doing out there?
Good, brother. How are you, man?
Man, I'm good. I'm just going to work every day and staying away from people, which is kind of my routine anyway. Okay, I flashed people the website on accident, but I'll go back to that. This is victormarx.com, and it says identify, interrupt, and restore those affected by trauma. Man, where should we start with this? You want to start with your story, or you want to start with some of the stories of the people you impact?
Like, why? Why do I even do this?
Yeah.
Why do I care about people who've been traumatized? And the scale is from minimum to max, but the reality I tell people, especially when I share a little bit of my story right now, people always say, well, my life's not as bad as yours. And I just go, well, pain is relative, right? The consequences are different, but the pain's the same. So for me, why I'm so, I would say, led and passionate about this is I suffered abuse, first rejection by my biological dad. My mother was married 6 times. My dad didn't claim me as his own kid. And then, I was abused. I was in a very uncontrolled environment, and sadly, I got taken advantage of as a kid, and ultimately was tortured and left for dead in a commercial cooler. So, people go, wow, you don't even act like it. I just go, well, 123 visits to a trauma specialist. I've been on Depakote, Depakine, Prozac, Zoloft, lithium, Buspar. I was under heavy psychiatric care for a long time, and I'm here to say that the power of God, mixed with what I would call soul surgeons, that can really help a person understand what's going on in their brain housing group, is what did it for me. And an absolutely loving bride who is my righteous hottie, and I'm so glad she has stayed with me now 31 years.
Congratulations on that. Let me ask you a question about that, because I know you hear the range of things, especially in the church. What's your take on medication, on psychiatry, and faith, and how do all those mix? Do they mix?
Well, I think I consider the source but where I hear opinions versus facts, because everybody's got an opinion. I don't want to know the facts. I feel a lot more comfortable with someone who goes, I have a family member that struggled with depression or, bipolar or whatever. And this is how we work through it, versus someone that says, well, I don't think it. And I just go, yeah. It's like when people tell me about ISIS, I hear well-meaning, but in some instances highly unqualified, and in a small percentage stupid people in Christendom try to tell me about ISIS and Muslims, and then I just go, really? Even think tanks up in D.C. where I've met with, and I've said, so that's your position on ISIS, this is this. I said, so have you ever met an ISIS fighter? Have you ever interrogated one? Have you ever lived in Iraq? Did you know any Muslims? And it ends up putting them on their heels. So in reference to medication and doctors, I'd say this. There are some times where there's a chemical imbalance, and medication is a great godsend. and a person should never feel guilty for it. They shouldn't let people of faith try to condemn them. Again, I liken it to somebody. If people look on the website or on my social media platforms, they may see a picture of me in Iraq with a weapon. And I've had a lot of Super Saints tell me, you're a missionary or you're a high-risk humanitarian. Why would you carry a gun? I said, well, let me ask you. At home, do you lock your door at night? And they're like, well, yeah. I go, why? If you have faith that God's going to protect you, does that mean you abandon all practical aspects and wisdoms of doing it? Normally they calm down a little bit, but I just go, what if I have a child that we just recovered out of ISIS territory, or his parents were murdered, and we're bringing them to our safe house? And there are many nefarious characters that would want to kill us, hit our vehicles, whatnot. So, we ride in armored vehicles. We use weapons. Isn't that practical? We're not out there to get in gunfights. We're not out there to, go smoke people. But we are there to protect and provide. And same way with medications and psychologists and psychiatrists. Now, with that said, I'm good friends with Tim Kennedy. He's president of the American Christians Council Association. And, we've laughed, and I've told him, I said, man, there's a lot of people in your field that shouldn't be. And they're probably doing more damage than good. And I'd say the same about ministry. Not every guy who steps behind the pulpit and not every person who leads a ministry is actually called to do it. And people should really self-assess to make sure before they start running in a lane and in an area that really affects people in deep ways.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. You reference ISIS and Iraq and rescuing children from ISIS. Explain what that's about for people that don't know what you've done.
5 years ago when ISIS hit Iraq and they were developing the caliphate, we had an invitation to go and help provide trauma care for girls who had been held captive by ISIS. So, being the great spiritual giant I am, I said, no, thank you. And being married to the woman I am, she said, you need to pray. I was like, babe, I don't want to pray. And but I did, and sure enough, it was God's will. We took a team. We went and found these girls who had been held captive. The suicide rate was high, and people were struggling to reach them. And but we did. And when I say we, my wife was on the team, because when I was getting ready to go, and we were prepping, and I had developed our security team to have former SEALs, MARSOC Marines, Delta Force guys, because we were going into harm's way where, crazy things were happening. My wife tells me, she goes, well, honey, I feel like I'm supposed to go with you. I'm like, what? No. She goes, yeah, I feel like I'm supposed to go. I said, why? She goes, well, when you find the girls, you can't hug them, but I can.
Wow.
And I was like, my goodness, you're willing to risk your life just to hug girls? She goes, they'll need a hug. And she goes, this was her response, how long are we on earth for anyway? So that's who I'm married to. I mean, she's like, I've gone on missions over there. We've ended up having safe houses, armored vehicles, teams. We still operate right now out of a prison camp for ISIS in Syria. We actually have an associate team there, and we're piping in Christian television into an ISIS camp and positive things, trying to reach the heart of ISIS wives and children who are incarcerated. So, yeah, pretty radical.
Yeah, okay, so we consider ISIS probably the ultimate evil in the world right now, right? Islam, obviously a religion that is not compatible with Christianity. The whole Islam also a governmental system not compatible with the American system and most Western countries.
Yep.
How do you view what you do in the Muslim world? Do you view it as, you're going into the pit of evil, or do you view it a little differently, a little more nuanced?
Well, I would say the physical danger is heightened, but missionaries have been doing that forever,
Okay.
right? I mean, and what I've learned to do is not focus on the organization or the entity, but that which drives it, which is evil, which is Lucifer, which is Satan himself. And, people have asked me, Victor, are you over there preaching the gospel when you go? I go, well, I've kind of been reduced to living it. And what I mean by that is when I step off the plane, every person who knows me and sees me, they know I'm a follower of Jesus Christ. So they want to see if I'm going to live what I believe. And when they ask me, or when God prompts me, then I share the cross, which is an offense. But yet it's the love. It's like Ravi Zacharias says, the two most common ways Muslims are coming to faith is through Christians loving them, and second, through the visitation of God to them through Christ. And I'll tell you, the Lord has visited so many. I've had people on my team say, Jesus, and they're Muslims, because not all my team is Christian. You can't operate like a submarine there. You have to open up and have team members that are Yazidi, Muslims, to do humanitarian work. And I've had people tell me, Jesus came to me last night in a dream. He talked to me.
Yeah, I hear that a lot.
Help me. It's so real. So, but again, I'm an evangelist by calling. We use the lane of effort of helping people recover from trauma. Physically, we provide surgeries for children, eyes, legs, spinal cord injuries, torture. We're doing it over there 24/7. And then here in the U.S., same thing. I speak at military bases. I'm on a newly formed White House enthused and encouraged organization that's Alliance for Faith-Based Services for Veterans. And it's incredible. I mean, out of thousands and thousands of organizations, we're humbled to be one of 8 that was picked to be founding members of it.
Yeah.
And Chad Robichaux with Mighty Oaks, and there's others. Dave Reaver's on there. I mean, it's pretty amazing what God's doing. So in the veterans community, and then here,
go ahead.
we just, my wife and I feel like we're in a season with all of our work overseas, and we still do, to start now building and encouraging believers in the States and reaching non-believers through what we call our Leadership Training Center in Colorado Springs, Colorado. And God has blessed, and we're actually on the front end of it, building out, putting buildings. And I mean, it's a place, it's like a retreat center, like a Christian couple, if they want to come, because my wife and I, because we've been in so many bad situations overseas, and then we've learned to work through bad situations here. Our philosophy in marriage is learn to fight back to back, not nose to nose.
That's good. That's good.
Yeah, so we have couples, men, teenagers, and then this is the really big one. We're going to be the official national certified training center for church security teams.
Oh.
So that every church gets on the same playing field of every volunteer, so that a guy who's trained here can go to your church, another church, and every time the head of security, the volunteer, whatever, don't know who he is, what his training is, and it'll be because he'll be certified through us.
Okay, I got to ask you a question about that, but first I want to remind people just dropped in. We're talking to Victor Marx, founder of All Things Possible Ministries, and obviously there's a lot going on there. But this is interesting that you're getting into the church security thing, because this is obviously a big deal. We've had too many shootings in churches, just right here in the Fort Worth, just west of Fort Worth, most recently. And I know the guys at my church were like, that ain't happening here. So church security is a real thing. What are you seeing? What's motivated you to get into that area?
Well, this is it. in order to do what we've done overseas, with over 70 missions, we've been to places 14 different times. I mean, major things, and stayed alive. Not everybody that we've worked with. There have been people who've injured, killed, shot. So how have we done this? Well, it's through really good training, situational awareness, surveillance, counter-surveillance, movements through vehicles, and what I would say, tier 1 training. Because if you got a guy on your team who served in Delta with 1,000 missions and never lost a man, obviously he's got some leadership and crisis management information to pass on. So that's what our teams are developed here, that we're going to pass on to others. It really is some of the best people with the most experience. Because I'll go to a church to speak, and it'll be like, we do our pre-brief, and it's like, all right, what's your security, da-da-da, and protocols? Oh, we're good, man. We got so many people concealed carry here. And it's like,
oh, geez.
But now we're really worried. But it's amazing things. One of our advisory board members, he did a security detail for Newt Gingrich, and we were laughing, talking, because he was a Delta operator and leader, great guy, and he goes, he goes, obviously it's to keep the principal safe or people around, but he goes, it's also to keep them free from embarrassment, because the LGBT community would plant somebody in his messages and they throw a glitter bomb. So he just said, we developed surveillance, their protocols, Fieldcraft, where if Newt gave a joke and everybody's laughing but one person, then his team would and they'd put somebody next to him or a big camera, and he laughed. He goes, yeah, when we turn the predator into the prey, everything changed.
That's funny.
So, our children and families need to be able to worship without a worry or threat, and it's only going to increase. So we're really, we've got special operations guys that are believers going, we can't wait to pass on our knowledge to help equip churches throughout the United States.
Yeah, that's cool. And just for people that don't know you, what is your military background?
I served in the United States Marine Corps with Colonel Oliver North. The difference was he was doing significant things and I was raking sand and painting rocks. But as we reunited actually in Iraq, doing things in the Mosul, we had a blast and almost got into some trouble. But it was my training, because I served under President Ronald Reagan. That dates me. And I think we were just getting rid of muskets and wagon wheels. But it's that training that I had even back then. And I was a competitive shooter, and I've always done hand-to-hand combat, supposed to, and trained guys throughout the years. But now it really accumulated through a lot of what we would call high-risk humanitarian or missionary work. So another thing is we're going to be training missionaries at our leadership training center to prep them before they go overseas. Comm, medical, redundancy plans, things that make a difference, a big difference.
All right, now you got something new out. I hadn't seen this until just today, and that is on your website. You've got a daily intelligence brief where people can sign up. And you say no fake news. All right. People sign up, just email, drops in their email. What are you doing through that?
Well, we've put together, because of our open source intelligence analysts and highly qualified men and women who have tracked some of the worst terrorists in the world and got them, we've developed this team to put together a reliable, truthful, factual daily brief that wouldn't be really accessible to people as far as going through our filters to find out what's really going on. And this gets dropped in somebody's email box. It takes 10 seconds to sign up. And we fact check rumors that are going on. We talk about the top stories. We cut through the nonsense, and then we give our perspective currently on COVID-19 daily, so people can make decisions, whether for their family or business or ministry. And it is quickly uh, exploded with trying to follow it because, again, it's unbiased and solid.
Okay, so give us your take on COVID-19 since we're talking about that.
Yeah, well, we have a very solid history of predictive analysis on this, and we were telling people well before it hit that things were going to get dicey, that there would be a national shut-in. And I was getting it. People would say, Victor, come on, man, where are you getting this information? I said, well, I had multiple sources because sources matter, but one of them sits down with the president for 45 minutes every day. So we have legs and fingers and relationships in the intelligence community, and it goes beyond and beyond and beyond. So I think with COVID, it's done what we thought it would do, and right now is a pretty critical time. I am pro churches starting to meet again, and yet I think with wisdom, the biggest concern is those who are highly susceptible to, the dangers of this disease.
Yeah.
So we need to look out for the elderly and those who are high risk.
Yeah.
But we definitely need to get our nation running again because there's secondary effects of the shutdown that are going to cause that currently are causing many deaths, many psychological problems, child abuse. It's real.
Yeah. Do you have any insight into the origins of it? I mean, was it an accidental lab leak out of Wuhan or something else?
Well, I think enough information is coming out where, all arrows are pointing to the lab.
Yeah.
And I think more information is going to be released. But what I appreciate about President Trump, I don't agree with him on everything, some of his approaches, but I'm on the evangelical, happy train for him because of Christian leaders. I think he's a man for the job. I think he's been leading well, and he's a tactician. People think he's passionate and he shoots from the hip, but he's a tactician and he's always looking out for the welfare of our country. So I think he's very measured in what he does, even though it seems like he's swinging for the rafters.
Yeah.
I think stuff's going to come out.
Yeah. When he opens your mouth, you get nervous because you're just not sure what's going to come out.
Oh, yeah.
Let's jump back to your ministry because I want to know when you're dealing with, someone in extreme cases where you've rescued them from ISIS, or you're dealing with maybe someone in the military who's come back home who's facing trauma, or just even, domestic abuse or something like that. All these levels of trauma. What is your core message to that person?
Yeah, it's a great question. Well, one, you have to address their pain. Real, imagine, little, or a lot. They got to be validated that something's not right. Second is I always take people really first to a spiritual realm. I go, do you believe in God? Do you believe in evil? Because I believe evil is so intent on the destruction of humanity, even starting with kids, because it's been said, if you build a child, you won't have to repair an adult. So a lot of behavior challenges, a lot of relational issues, a lot of recovery stuff. People have to understand, why is this happening? Why was my mother and dad killed, when I was a baby, and you put me in the back of a armored vehicle and got me out of Mosul, and now I'm 5, 6, 7. But if God loves me, why would this happen? So we explained the difference between causing and allowing, but we really put the blame of evil on the source, Satan. So that gives people a worldview and a mindset change. And then we bring them into the hope. We work through different modalities and approaches of mental health care, strengthening a person's mind, whether it's EMDR, whether it's counseling, whether it's hanging out with a group of guys. I asked a counselor one time, a friend of mine who was on staff, I said, doctorate degree. I said, hey man, posthole digger. I said, listen, that was his initials after his name.
Oh, PhD. Sorry.
And I said, if you had to give a refund because of a money back guarantee for, a 20-year practice, how'd you be sitting? He goes, I'll be on welfare. And so I believe as many modalities and approaches that are out there that are valid, you still have to bring the hope of Christ into their life, or else they're someone who feels better but still is without hope and can circle back. So it's a holistic approach. And like at our training center, when we get going this summer, because we're already doing it, but we work on people's minds, we challenge people, we give them physical skills. I mean, a retreat center where you can learn actually how to hold a weapon and shoot it, understand what counter surveillance is, play a laser, simulation deal for judgment. I mean, it's fun. And then sit down and study the Word of God, so that it's more holistic and inclusive of going, wow, as a whole person. So, yeah, it's people have to have the hope of Christ.
Yeah.
But they have to be validated in their pain, and why did my dad commit suicide, or my spouse or whatever. So yeah.
We're talking again to Victor Marx, and I'll put the URL in the chat as well, so you don't have to try to spell it. But last question for you, because you were abused as a child, went into the military. It really helped you with the structure. Now you're helping others in trauma, and you're talking about Christ. What was the moment for you that you went, you know what, the missing part of my life, the place where I need to find hope is in Christ? What was the moment that impacted you?
Thank you. I was in the Marine Corps, and I remember I was in college taking a course, and the professor, a simple question, list the top 10 things in your life of most value and importance. And I remember that I put my family as number 1, God number 2, martial arts number 3, and so on and so forth. And the conviction of God that came on me saying, that in the 10 Commandments, you can't have any. I said, but my family is real to me, and God, you hadn't been so real. Conviction came on me, and I really started being drawn by God. And then it was through a letter, through my biological dad, who had never claimed me, as an early kid, who was a drug dealer and a pimp, who was in the occult. He sends me a letter while I'm in the Marine Corps and says, I've never been a dad. And I was angry at him because I got abused by other men because he wasn't being the dad he was supposed to be. And that's real. And he goes, I know you think I'm crazy. I go, yeah. Because he was in a mental hospital for a time period, and it was the same mental hospital his dad, my grandfather, died in. So I'm just thinking, okay, we have a timeshare and all this. And it was through him saying, I know you think I'm crazy, but I've received Jesus Christ. And he's changed my life. I went down and visited him while I was still a Marine, and I heard just this message of the cross, of God's love, and redemption, reconciliation, things that sounded religious to me, but that day made a lot of sense. And I'll tell you, Randy, in that moment, I never felt the conviction of God so heavy in my life of my sin that I put Jesus on the cross. And at the same time, it was almost like I was being choked by one hand of reality, but the other hand was holding me up so I wouldn't drown in the water. And it was God saying, but I love you. So I'll take this hand of wrath off because of the cross. I love you. And I remember going, how can you love me? I really realize I'm bad. And he goes, because I do. And that day I gave my life to Christ. And you know what? It wasn't, he got the short end of the stick, that's for sure.
I don't know about that. Oh, Victor, man, I always enjoy talking to you, and it's great to hear the updates. I want people to sign up for your daily intelligence brief at victormarx.com/brief. And man, before we get out of here, is there anything else you just need to say, you want to promote, you got the floor for the last few seconds here.
Well, I'll just say this. A lot of people watching, and the world has been turned upside down. And my prayer for Christianity in the U.S. is that we don't go back to the norm. I think it's a great time for change. There's been a machine in Christendom that has been well oiled, but not very well honoring of God. There's a lot of people in ministry and in leadership positions that need to repent. They genuinely need to repent. And I know you, and I know your parents, and I know the people y'all hang with. Y'all are the real deal. And there are some programs I simply won't go on because platform doesn't mean that I should do it. But I love you guys, and I am thankful for y'all. And man, Lord bless y'all big time. Look forward to visiting them again.
Oh, thank you. And you get any reason you want to get out there and share, you just call me, and we'll definitely have you back here on Live Today Live. You just let me know. It's always good to talk to you. And last note for you guys watching, by the way, if you haven't subscribed or followed the Live Today TV channel where you're watching now, do that so you'll see more great interviews. But I do want to mention we are in our mission feeding outreach, and that's important to us that we continue during this difficult time feeding 350,000 kids a month, primarily sub-Saharan Africa. And if God puts it on your heart, just go to lifetoday.org/live. Make a gift. There's a book of mine up there. Glad to send that to you for free when you support the mission feeding outreach. My heart is right in that picture you're seeing right there, handing that bowl of vitamin enriched, we call it soup. It's more like a oatmeal to those kids. And I don't want that food to run out before that line is complete. So that's our partners. We appreciate you guys helping. Join us again next time here on Live Today Live, and check out VictorMarx.com. We'll see you again tomorrow.